Hi, I'm Matt McKibben. I'm the co-founder of Decentranet. I'm happy to be here at Bitcoin 2022 with Defiance Media. As we see these decentralized technologies come into the mainstream, there's almost a cultural component or revolution that's going on as well that builds around what the technologies can do for the common man and how they allow more people to collaborate on common means, on fair and stable and democratized means of trade and governance and applications there. Specifically, blockchain technology or decentralized communities have been using NFTs really, really well. NFTs allow for kind of decentralized cultural participation in a way that we've never seen before. The biggest brand managers, the biggest film, the music stars are saying, hey, this represents being a part of my community or my brand, and if you purchase or you enter into that, you get direct access to me and my brand, which had never really been done before. Otherwise, you kind of pay advertisers and they put ads up in people's faces, and now you have direct, mutually beneficial collaboration between the person that is doing the branding and building the community and the community itself, disintermediating the middleman in accessing and expression in art, in music. Instead of having these branding or centralized hierarchical organizations kind of try to find out what all the participants want, they can directly come to what they want to be a part of. People see the JPEGs and they think that that's all an NFT is the representation of the image. But really, an NFT in this is direct participation of the community into something that they can kind of own and be a part of. And that's why kind of you see like the biggest music and branding managers using it as a tool to access and to build communities. They know exactly how to build communities, and they're using this blockchain technology that is specifically applied to doing something unique on the blockchain and as the best possible tool to do so. So like, for example, Doodles had an event at South by Southwest. And if you owned a Doodle NFT, you could go access and you get some of the swag and goes to all the main things. But they're building like a multi-billion-dollar brand around this crowdsourced, essentially funded community that they're going to be able to sell all kinds of merch and extra participation. But because they're really, really good at building branding and marketing and using this tool as the community building tool. I really like to see artists being able to own portions of their revenue as the life of the project moves on. It's not just like, I'm gonna sell this the one time and then I'm gonna, like, if someone sells it for $1 million 10 years later, I get nothing. Artists are attached to their work for the rest of time and they get that revenue share. I think the collaboration around doing art for impact missions like in Ukraine and being able to do like crowdsourced humanitarian aid and being able to get a piece of a collectible or a piece of product for that on the digital ledger is really, really, really interesting, because you say, I participated in helping Ukrainians, for example, when they were invaded and they needed humanitarian aid. We've seen hundreds of millions of dollars already poured into that, and it's the first time. So that really excites me, crowdsourced humanitarian aid and being able to officially say that you participated in those impact projects.
My name's Bill Barhydt. I'm the founder and CEO of Abra, and I'm the host of Money Talks. The reality is, for most stores, there may not be a direct benefit from accepting crypto in the very short term, with some exceptions. So if you're doing cross-border commerce, right, and you're basically selling your goods in another country, and you don't want to deal with chargebacks, because if I'm a vendor in Mexico and I'm shipping my t-shirts to Canada, the last thing I want is a credit card purchase to be reversed after I've sent 6 boxes of t-shirts to Toronto. But if I can accept, let's say, a dollar stablecoin for those transactions, which to the merchant might be hidden and look like a bank transaction at some point soon, but appear like cash as a bank transaction, meaning it's not reversible unless I agree with the merchant to reverse the transaction. That's very powerful. Whereas credit cards, you can basically reverse a transaction, start a whole process, and the merchant is waiting potentially for months for their money. So there are certain transaction types on the merchant side that are compelling today. Supply chain transactions, which is a little bit far afield from merchants, but where it makes sense. If it's just, you and I walking into a coffee shop, a Starbucks, and saying, okay, let's buy the latte for $6, I don't know that crypto adds a lot of value yet in that transaction type. But once we get to the point where we're all holding Bitcoin, we're all holding Ethereum, and are borrowing at the point of sale to pay for that Bitcoin in real time, that's going to be a crypto transaction, whether you know it or not. Just like when you tap your phone to pay, that's an internet-based transaction, whether you know it or not, right? So I think the transaction needs to become embedded in our everyday life in a way where we don't think, oh, I need to pay with crypto. No, I need to pay. Whatever happens, happens. Right now, Bitcoin is not optimized for payments. It's optimized to be hard money. So at Abra, we've architected a payment solution that allows you to borrow against Bitcoin holdings. You hold the appreciating asset forever. You never want to sell it because it's appreciating. You borrow in the depreciating asset, which is the dollar. You want to spend the depreciating asset and hold the appreciating asset. So the beauty of our system is, if you're holding $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, I'll lend you $150 right now for free with 0 interest. And you can spend that any way you want. So if you're holding $1 million, I'll lend you $150,000 for free, and so on and so on. And that's the future of payments. So if you think about places like India, right, where families pass on gold as generational wealth, they don't access that wealth. They refer to it as generational wealth, but it literally is in a drawer or a safety deposit box being passed down from family to family. If Bitcoin becomes that generational wealth, you can actually access that wealth for payments now, the way I just described, by borrowing against it. It'll be tied to your credit card eventually, right? It'll be tied to your Apple Pay or Google Pay or Samsung Pay, and you'll simply tap, and you'll be instantly borrowing against your Bitcoin holdings. That's our theory on where this is all going.
So my name's Alex Adelman. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Lolly. Lolly is a Bitcoin rewards company. We give people free Bitcoin when they shop online at over 1,000 merchants. Yeah, so we've been around a little over 3 years. My co-founder Matt and I, we were building a company in the payment space before, and we were meeting with a lot of these merchants. And when we learned about Bitcoin, we were like, oh, merchants would love Bitcoin. It's an immutable currency. It's something that 4.5 billion people with an internet connection can own, earn, share anywhere. We took it to a lot of these merchants, and they really weren't that interested in it. One, they were like, consumers don't have it. 2, the consumers that did have it didn't want to spend it. And 3, remittance networks weren't set up. And so it was really difficult for merchants to adopt Bitcoin in that time. Equally, I was meeting with a lot of friends and telling them about this amazing thing that I had learned about, which was Bitcoin. And I was really surprised to see that a lot of people just weren't interested in taking their hard-earned money and investing in a very volatile asset. Quickly realized that people, I think the masses, were not going to adopt Bitcoin with payments, and sort of thought about that a lot over the years. We ultimately were acquired by Rakuten, which is the biggest cashback company in the US and many parts of the world. And when we were there, we were like, wow, this would be an incredible way to actually share Bitcoin with people. And so after we parted ways, we got the band back together and started to build basically cashback, but for Bitcoin. So we very quickly realized that merchants loved it because they could attract a new customer. Consumers loved it because they would get Bitcoin for free. They didn't have to invest in it, and everybody wins. So how are merchants adopting Bitcoin with Lolly, and then how are consumers adopting Bitcoin with Lolly, and trying to share what we've learned about the space so that more companies, more people can further that mission to make Bitcoin more accessible to everyone. I think when we first started Lolly, Bitcoin was very foreign to not just consumers but also merchants as well. So a lot of merchants had a lot of similar feedback to what we saw in 2013. They were scared of Bitcoin. They thought it was a little daunting. They thought that they had to do these massive integrations and big technical due diligence. And what we really have proven is that you can get into Bitcoin very easily when you go through rewards. So part of our calling card is that people can get set up in a few hours with Lolly. It doesn't take an integration. Yeah, we're able to get people onboarded really easily, and typically, most merchants' first experience, first partnership in Bitcoin. So I think of our 1,100 merchant partners, only about 5 of them actually accept cryptocurrency, which kind of shows you like how powerful Bitcoin rewards is in the grand ecosystem. So the more that we can actually lead that adoption and get merchants on board, that's going to bring more consumers, and it's going to be this beautiful flywheel of adoption. So the more consumers that we have, the more merchants we have. More merchants we have, the more consumers we have. So some of the cool stats about Lolly so far is we just passed 500,000 users and 1,100 merchants on the platform to date. We've given out over $9 million in merchant-funded Bitcoin rewards. We also have driven over $85 million in sales for our merchants. So everybody's winning, everyone's having fun, and ultimately the consumers loving it because since we launched, Bitcoin has gone from 4,000 to 45, and so our rewards have more than 10x. So people are pretty happy with the platform and Bitcoin in general since we launched.
My name is Matthew Wilson. I'm Vice President of Medical Supply, which I founded back in the early days of COVID in March 2020, when everyone in the United States was kind of oblivious to what was going on in China. I saw it as a need to bring in PPE for protecting our frontline workers. And in the early stages, I went from basically the parking lots of South Florida selling masks to now we supply over 150 hospitals around the country out of a need to supply genuine, authentic product. And that has been our building block to building these relationships, is always delivering on what we say we do and supplying authentic product, which our frontline workers can count on and rely on. Me as a passive investor in Bitcoin, it is something that I allocate a large percentage of my income and net worth to as I look to exit out of the medical space in the next year and enter full-time into investing into Bitcoin. I'm very bullish on it, and that's why I'm here to network and connect with some of the top players in the industry. I'm bullish on the long term. I see a cyclical cycle of ups and downs in the short run, but for the long run, I'm bullish. And my thing is, once you have it, try not to sell it. If you have to, borrow against it, and interest rates are manageable or low. So that's how I look to handle the finances of our company as well. What made me different from everyone else is I saw earlier on there was a lot of risk from hospitals dealing with people that they had no idea who they were. I figured out we could offer was trustworthiness. We didn't require any money up front from a lot of these hospitals, which everyone in the earlier days was requiring money to receive the product. So I knew they didn't know me, we didn't know them, but what we did know is these hospitals are credit worthy. We're in a market where if a hospital does go under, some of the larger hospitals would likely acquire them and acquire their debt. So eventually, any debt that accumulated would be settled. Thankfully, we haven't been in a situation where we haven't been paid on our net terms, because all of our customers really love us and understand the value of the service we're offering. Whereas some may say we're pandemic profiteering, all of our customers, over 150 hospitals, actually see our service as a value add to their supply chain and are thankful for what we're doing. A lot of the key players wanted a quick turnover on their capital, so they would require money up front to get the product out of the warehouse. Well, what we did was we set up domestic suppliers where we could drop ship product from their warehouses. We would pay for the product up front, ship it to the hospital on net zero terms. So our typical outlay of capital would be 5 to 10 days, which is way more manageable when everyone else was importing from overseas. Lead times were 30, 60 days. So that was kind of the market we focused on. And in doing so, we were able to not only turn over capital and buy more product to supply more hospitals, but we were able to build out the group of hospitals that we have now so quickly because it allowed us to perform and execute on what we say we could do, which is the number one thing is when you say you're going to do something, do it. Don't underestimate, and overperform. And that's what one thing that I learned was critical in this industry, not just this industry, and investments and anything you do in life is always overperform and underpromise. That brings it to kind of the structure of the company. So in the early days, I had the proof of concept, and I partnered with my grandpa, and we set up a family operation. We have 3 generations in the company. My mom, my aunt, she's our CFO. So we built out not just a successful medical business, but a family-owned and operated 3 generations, and it's been great. And I'm optimistic for the future, just because what we've seen recently, a lot of people think that we're at the end of this, but a lot of the smaller players and I would say part-time players in the industry have exited, which ultimately has allowed us to build more of a reputation and reach more hospitals because there's more of a need now than almost ever, because the lack of reputable people, a lot of hospitals being scammed out of fraudulent PPE and whatnot. So we started in the PPE space. Now we've expanded into just traditional medical supplies. We supply over 100 different SKUs. PPE is personal protective equipment. So N95s, isolation gowns, gloves, face shields. I started just going out. I remember I went out, I bought 1,000 masks, and I went to Publix and Walmart parking lots and was selling them. And then I called up my grandpa, and he was like, oh yeah, like he has an extensive business background, took his company public. And he was like, oh yeah, have fun. He didn't see it, and so I went out and I kept doing it, and then eventually we came together and landed Baptist, South Florida, and then we're in some of the largest hospitals in the United States. So.
So I'm Rohan Agarwal, and I'm the co-founder and CEO at CipherRock. So at CipherRock, we are basically building the safest hardware wallet in the world. So this is actually the first hardware wallet in the world without a seed phrase. There you have it. So these are like 4 cards and one of the device. And the reason why we think this is possible with us is because in this product, the private key is never stored in a single place. So with any other wallet out there in the world, every hardware wallet you could take it, they store the private key in a single place. And as we know, there's nothing 100% secure in the world. You can't have that. And so if your hardware is breached, your funds can be compromised. But in this case, your private key itself is sort of distributed, or in some sense decentralized, into 5 parts, which you can basically store it in different locations. So these are not your normal RFID cards. These are highly secure cards used in the banking industry for making your debit cards and credit cards. So the same secure hardware. So these are 4 of them. And then what you do is you just distribute them into 4 different locations. But the magic thing about this is whenever you want to make a transaction, you don't need to fetch all of the 4 cards. You just need to fetch the device and any one of the 4 cards to make a transaction. So maybe fetch the 3rd one, tap it on the device, it's through NFC. So tap it and your transaction is done. Me and my co-founders, we are both engineers by trade, been building software for companies like Google, Samsung, and the likes. My co-founder, he's worked with Lockheed Martin before. We started off in this industry, trading and investing in this space. This is 2017 ICO boom. And then we lost sort of most of our assets in the bust cycle. And we said, trading is not something for us. It's rather much better to work in the technology itself rather than speculating on these assets, which we basically have no control over. And that's when we decided to see, what are the problems that we could solve in the space using our own unique skill sets. And that's when we find that self-custody needs to be solved for the masses, for this ecosystem, and for this technology to actually take off. Because with exchanges, it's similar to the banking industry. They take custody of their funds, and if it's the exchanges that take over the mind share, the thing is, it will be the finance 2.0 all over again. It will never be the finance 3.0 that everyone wanted. And for that to happen, you need self-custody to scale for the masses. Crypto commerce is obviously like very important. Like apart from like the Bitcoin, you know, I think there's a need for innovation beyond just Bitcoin. Bitcoin serves a specific use case, which is sort of the store of value. But then there are different other sort of use cases that people are building on top of, you know, decentralized social media, for an example, right? Which people think that, you know, should be decentralized eventually, and that's where you have the other crypto, you know, currency and projects really, you know, banking their sort of time on.